You know, they just don't make games like they used to. Back in the olden days, games came on physical hardware that you had to directly insert into the console in order to play it. Once you did have the game in your grubby little hands, that was the whole game. No DLC or patches to speak of. Fixing issues or making adjustments within the game after it's already been released was impossible, but that's also what sequels were for. Fast forward to the present day, and I now have an entire video game digital storefront bookmarked to the start bar of my computer. I have multiple games awaiting new patches to fix issues, rebalance gameplay, or even just add new content to the base game. Instead of the single price tag of a video game, we now have games acting as live services that update regularly and add new content over time. But I also think this idea of live services causes friction between the consumer and the product, most notably in fighting games. For most live services, what draws players in is the very low barrier to entry. They can run on just about any device without issue, and they are typically free to play. Once you start playing, you can get in-game rewards just for playing the game. This creates a feeling of progression and accomplishment just from hitting that play button. And this is what keeps you coming back to play it. The way they make their money is offering microtransactions. Typically, these are smaller purchases offered for cosmetic purposes, but other times they will lock gameplay elements behind these tiny paywalls. Microtransactions differ from game to game, with some being far more devious with their storefront than others. In terms of financial barrier to entry, modern fighting games feel inconsistent at best and insidiously greedy at worst. For most fighting games, the entire business model for them is actually pretty similar to a live service. They offer new balance patches every so often and new characters being added over time. However, fighting games typically have a hefty price tag just to play the game. While this isn't the case for every fighting game, games that offer characters, stages, or music for free are the exception, not the rule. Fans of the genre or series are willing to spend the money because we love the games. But what would happen if we didn't have to spend that money? Even if fighting games were to remove the initial barrier to entry and go free to play, fighting games would need to treat monetization very carefully to get it correct. Cosmetics for your character, HUD, or even announcers can make your experience more personalized and typically won't have a direct influence on gameplay. But the things that do have an influence on gameplay, such as characters or stages, are the primary source of DLC for pretty much every fighting game. And the reason is simple: characters sell. That said, implementation of these new additions has been murky at best. If you're trying to practice against the newest addition to the roster without purchasing it in most modern fighting games, you simply won't be able to. Games like Multiversus allow you to try before you buy in the training and offline modes, which is definitely a great thing. But because I can use everything offline without issue, the artificial scarcity of unlocking characters for online play is constantly in the back of my mind. It might not be as manipulative as other practices I've dealt with in other fighting games, but that doesn't mean that we can't be better. If fighting game developers don't want to make their game free to play, I think that's fine, but they should compare their game to others on the market and price accordingly. If fighting games want to compete in the free-to-play competitive gaming market, I think most of us would rather see cosmetics for sale rather than characters. And if they're going to sell us new characters, players should be able to practice them before purchasing them. Melty Blood Type Lumina gave us 6 free characters, new stages, and new music with more free content on the way. Meanwhile, Tekken 7 charges money for frame data. Hopefully in the future, things will make a bit more sense around here. My name is Tuna Maguna, and thank you for watching.